Um, this week has been a very big week for me, as far as healing goes. Um, and there's all manner of things going on in my life. And the funny part about it is, the awakening's not something, or the acceptance of the atonement for oneself, or the willingness to fulfill one's function in space and time in God's plan for the atonement. It's not a theoretical um, it's not a theoretical undertaking. I don't think the sound goes any higher. That's as high as the sound goes. I don't know what to. Is that better now? Sound? We back? Yes. Yes. Okay. So the reason we go through the process of awakening is because we've been mistaken about who we are, and we've used space and time to make that mistake. So the idea of fulfilling our function in God's plan for atonement, it's not a theoretical undertaking. It's an undertaking that requires the utilization of another way of thinking about everything that's taking place to you now, as well as everything that has taken place in the past, so as to undo the thoughts and situations, the events, the people, undo everything in our mind that has become an obstacle to our recognition of our own oneness and our reality. So there's lots and lots of theories as to how this takes place, but the way it takes place is by application of the principles to the thoughts in your mind about who you are, what you've been doing, and what your life is about now. So it's been an interesting week for me because two things have occurred. Number one is I've become a grandfather. My son and daughter-in-law last night had my first grandchild. And number two is after being contacted by an old friend this week, I went through a process of realizing that when I was in what I called the dark thing, which was way back, God knows how long ago, it started like in 2003 and went for about 5 years. When I was back dark thing, I was actually suffering from advanced Lyme's disease and didn't know it whatsoever. And miraculously, after an enormous amount of suffering, an enormous amount of not knowing what was going on, a light came back in my mind after 5 years of suffering, which was back in like God knows how long. It was the year before Teddy went away to college, when Teddy was a senior, when Teddy was between senior year and his freshman year in college, having suffered for 5 years from this debilitating condition. And the amount of suffering and how I suffered is not actually conveyable, which is one of the reasons why this friend of mine and these friends who have been suffering from Lyme's disease for years, getting in touch with me and talking to me has been so healing for me. And there are things that I didn't understand that were going on to me, going on around me, and I had no clue because my mind and my brain was not functioning and my body was in an incredibly debilitated state based on what was going on. And I attempted to treat it by going to psychiatrists and doing what they said. Now, the outcome was that one morning, lying in bed, a light came back on in my mind and said there was hope. And in that instant, I was healed of Lyme's disease and no longer suffered from it. I did not know at that time it was Lyme's disease that I was healed of. I found that out this week. And when I found it out, I went through a process of release, and I don't know, my emotions were all over the place, including massive amounts of anger and rage. But the joy of discovering what was actually occurring to me and the understanding that was brought to me by the Holy Spirit when I joined with my friend and we really began to look at things and go through stuff in the past based on the utilization of, the light of the love that we were experiencing, it put me through a massive amount of change and a massive amount of release. Now, when I say awakening or fulfilling your function in the plan for atonement is not theoretical, all of the things that you're reading in A Course in Miracles and applying to your mind are not about a transcendent state someplace, somewhere else. It's a way to utilize your mind and heart right here and right now to understand what you're going through, and then to look at all the things in your life that you did not understand because the mind that you were attempting to use to understand them did not allow them to have the meaning that made them understandable. And in the freedom of releasing yourself from that thinking, what occurs is the right-minded understanding through the action of forgiveness and the miracles of joining with our brother that takes us back into our own past, into our own history, and corrects our misunderstandings so that they are no longer blocks in the progress that we make in the sojourn that we're in right here and right now. So when I hear a lot of talk about awakening and all this stuff and all these theoretical things that are gone, these are not theories. The experiences that we're having are meant to heal our understanding of what we've thought about ourselves in the past, very specifically, so that there are no stones left unturned, and the thread of atonement is rewoven into the garment of a single cloth, so that all things make perfect sense within the wholeness of our own mind and heart. Because there is no way, like Lot's wife, if there is a hint of desire to look back because there is a longing, a misunderstanding, something you think you left behind and could lose, a feeling of sacrifice, you will not successfully make or fulfill that which is required in your own exit departure program so as not to have to repeat space and time again. Because any hook is all hooks. The ego will use absolutely anything and everything to keep us looking back in the past in confusion and misunderstanding so that we can't enjoy in certainty, say that there's nothing left for us here. So there's nothing here to keep us from moving beyond into the reality that we were created to create in. So this is one of the problems that I've been having since they updated POW Talk. For some reason, something happens and it doesn't function, it doesn't integrate with the rest of the functioning, and I oftentimes have to reboot everything to get it back up and running. It says all the systems are working right, but it doesn't seem to be working right when you go to use it. So I'm rebooting it right now. Let's see if we can get this thing to work the way it's meant to. Because of the nature of what has been involved in all this for me, I have to tell you the truth. I don't know how to say this. The healing that I've been undergoing since I reconnected with this old friend of mine, and I discovered I was healed of Lyme's disease, and now, while she's still suffering from it, we speak together. The birth of my grandson was so much a part of the healing that this friend of mine and I are undergoing, that the entire event was a testament to how Jesus is in control of space-time. No stone is left unturned, and none of our misunderstandings, none of our hurts, none of anything that we once looked upon amiss is left out of the healing that we undergo, so that there is nothing left to trouble us, and we can move along. It really is incredible. I mean, I want to tell this story. I want to really share with everybody what exactly happened. It was so miraculous, and yet so many people have been involved in this situation over the years, and so many people were included in the healing, that it's almost impossible for me to make sense of this unless I include like an entire sort of understanding of who these people have been in my life. Now, the person who made contact with me was the woman who I was with for 10 years while I was at the academy, and who, when I was sick and I didn't know why I was sick, I left to go back to Quincy to be with Teddy. Hold on. I'm going to put some music on and take this call right back. Never mind, I'm back. So everybody in my life was involved in this healing, and it all really did center. It really is centered on. So I got to tell you this story, man, and I'm not telling it to insult anybody. I'm not saying this to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just telling this story to show you how every detail in our life, everything that has ever hurt us, everything that has ever disturbed us, when we're willing to look at it, and when we're willing to like finally heal it within our own mind, like space and time really do bend to give us gifts, to show us that we are healed, and to give back to us that which we thought we lost or missed or sacrificed. So part of this story, so when I was with this woman, and I don't want to use people's names right at this point in time because she's very fragile at this point in time, and a lot of people know her, and there's no need, it can be helpful if people started to contact her. But this woman who I had been with, she was always hurt by the fact that when I got as sick as I did, I decided I had to go back and be with Teddy rather than live with her the way we planned. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but my thinking was so messed up from the Lymes that it was that things were not. So this is what I thought. In the insanity of the advanced untreated Lyme's disease, I really thought that if I made the wrong choice, I was condemning someone to death, and someone's going to die. And I've lived with that in my mind, thinking that these people have been hurt by choices that I made in the insanity of the condition of the Lyme's disease that I was suffering from. And I had no idea I was suffering from this Lyme's disease. So there was all manner of stuff going on, and nothing I could do about it because I didn't even know what it was that was going on. So this friend of mine, she was always in a situation where she seemed to have been like the second, like she was the second place. Like she wasn't my wife, but she was my girlfriend. So at certain times my wife got preferences over my girlfriend, who I really did love, and I never knew how to go about this. I just didn't know how to do these things. So one of the things that happened, and this was the most incredible moment. So this friend of mine called me because she's going through a hard time, and she's been calling me when she gets these panic attacks or these anxiety attacks. And we just sort of sit and we listen. I listen, and we talk about the stuff that we went through. We talk about, our disappointments. We talk about the love that we shared. We laugh about old times. We talk about what we thought hurt us. And it's been incredibly healing for both of us to just spend time, and for me to realize, I had Lyme's disease. Like I was sick. I was really sick, and people were telling me that I was suffering because I had denied the master teacher, and because of that, everybody was taking me to psychiatrists, and the psych meds that they give you when your brain is inflamed and swollen inside your mind drives you even crazier and into deeper and deeper states of depression and loss of energy, inability to function. Your thoughts and your mind doesn't function, so your body gets the messages. It is really, well, what it was no. So Christian, this is what it was. This is the part this is where the anger came in, and this is where the rage came in. What happened was, they used me as an example of what happens to people who deny the master teacher. So they went to the academy, and whenever anybody would start to step out of line, they would say, you don't want to end up like Hector. Remember what happened to him when he denied the master teacher. So that's the way they were using my condition, nobody knowing that it was Lyme's disease, and everyone attempting to use it to advance themselves and to use it to control the situation. So it was a very... No, Christian, you know what it was? You want to know what it was that I did that they considered disobeying the master teacher? He didn't want the Sparkly published. He wanted us to publish the exact same book that Ken Wapnick had been published with. So when I came to him and brought him the Sparkly, he went berserk and told me that the Jesus that I listened to was going to cause me to shoot 12 people. And I knew at that time that that was not true, and I knew that I was no longer helpful to the old man. What I didn't know was that I was also suffering from advanced, untreated Lyme's disease, and my emotions and my thoughts were all over the place, so I had no idea how to really process this thing and what went on. So it was an interesting situation. So I was being used as the poster child for what someone who denies the master teacher is like, and actually I was suffering from Lyme's disease, and I didn't know it. So, exactly. So now the interesting thing is this. I'm going to say her name. I got to say her name. The woman who I spent time with all those years, her name was Janelle. God Almighty, we were so in love. Like, God, I love her. I still love her. We still are in love. But so much has gone on. There's so much to heal. And in a sense, our lives have progressed in a particular way where we'll never, ever, ever be able to be together again as a couple, but we're certainly going back to the point where we knew who we were, and we were one spiritually, and we loved each other. And she's still suffering from advanced Lyme disease, and talking to her made me realize exactly what the hell it was I was suffering from. Now, one of the things that she always sort of was upset about was the fact that eventually I chose to go back to be with Teddy and Vicky, which to her sort of left her sort of feeling like our whole time together was a lie, or something was wrong. But she didn't know how sick I was. No one knew how sick I was. No one knew that I had Lyme disease. No one knew that I was suffering from this. And I was going crazier and crazier. They were taking me to see more and more psychiatrists. No one ever considered it was Lyme disease, and they were giving medications that they now find out are the exact opposite of what you should be giving people for psychiatric meds for Lyme disease. But one of the things that went on the other night was this. This is beautiful. This is the nature of the healing that we all undergo. This is the nature of the wisdom of God in His love for us. This is the sense, the personal nature of how forgiveness works when we turn our life and our will over to care of God, and we follow the guidance that we're given and accept what's going on for the purpose of healing our mind, rather than continue in separation, or think that this is about some theory of something outside of us, rather than the healing of the past that we've used to hurt ourselves and each other and keep us in the condition of denying God, and out of the flow of universal love and abundance that is our right, simply because we were created by an eternal, loving, infinite Father who shares everything with us right now. So I was on the phone. This friend of mine gave me the call, my friend Janelle. She called me late at night because she was having this panic attack, and she just needed someone to talk to. She's gone through all manner of treatments and nothing's worked, and all she knows is that when she heard we went through these things together. It's like we shared crazy times of disease and incredible times of love and wild times around the world doing all kinds of cool stuff. And then we both got incredibly sick, and something happened. We were ripped apart, and now here we were back together with a new understanding of what had taken place and being given back to each other for the sake of healing after all this time. So she calls me on the phone, and one of her pet peeves, one of the things that hurt her the most, was me going back to Vicky, and it caused her to feel like so many feelings, because remember, she was really sick too. All this feelings of inferiority and loss, and just the stuff that comes up when nobody understands what's going on. So one of the things that happened was she called me on the phone in the middle of this panic attack, and we began to talk about, some of the incredible times we had, some of the really incredibly good times that we shared, and some of the cool things we did all around the world as we traveled together, to help her remember the good times. Because when you're in this condition from Lyme disease, there's a part of Lyme disease that is really angry and violent, and it tells you false things that are so harsh and so penetratingly evil, and you start to believe them because you can't discuss them. You can't, it doesn't, your mind, heart, nothing's working together. So we're sharing all these things, and all this stuff is being released, and a lot of it had to do with the nature of our relationship at the end when we were sick, and my going back to Vicky instead of being with her. Now, there's all manner of, false stuff that we have in our minds that isn't true. And when the truth comes, it sorts out the false so that we're free to experience the love that's there and allow the universe to help us heal our past so that it doesn't have the ability to prevent us from being in the awareness of who we are now and the love that we were created to be. So Janelle calls me on the phone, and we're talking, and she called me on my cell phone. So we're talking for a long time, and we're going through all kinds of stuff, and I have been crying. I have been just crying and crying and crying. It's like tears of joy, tears of release, understanding things I didn't understand because I didn't know I was sick, realizations, friends getting in touch with me, new connections being made, all kinds of miraculous stuff taking place. And in the middle of this phone conversation, my other phone rings, and it's my son. It was Teddy. And he's calling me from the hospital. My daughter-in-law, Alicia, just had my first grandchild. So Teddy decides that I'm going to be the first one he calls. Teddy decides I'm going to be the first one he calls. So I put my cell phone down. I said, Janelle, just hold on. Wait 1 second, and I'll talk to you in a minute. Let's just see what Teddy has to say, because I didn't know what he was going to tell me yet. He had been calling me, giving me reports, but they didn't think the baby was going to be born till the next day. So now Janelle is on the phone, and she suffered from my thinking that I abandoned her, and all kinds of stuff that was being used to make me guilty to not be with her, and Teddy was part of what was being used back in those days. So Janelle's on the cell phone, listening to the conversation that I'm having with my son, and Teddy calls me to tell me first, before his mother, before her parents, to tell me first that they just had a son, and my grandson's name was Thomas Dominic. And in the incredible wisdom and blessing and healing nature of the love of the universe, Janelle was there with me to hear it for the first time, even before my ex-wife Vicky did. Now, how? This is it. How is it possible for something like that, of that magnitude, to be put together so that everyone could come out of it with a new understanding and healing energy and love? Jesus tells us, I am the head of the atonement. I am in charge of space and time. It was a perfect illustration, a perfect demonstration of the incredibly personal love that the universe has for each and every one of us, and how the healing, when forgiveness comes, makes up for every little instant of misunderstanding that troubled our heart and our mind, so that we can be free from any misperception, from any misunderstanding, from anything to cloud the eternal sky of love and joy that we were actually created to be in. Now, the fact that I just had a grandson, and my son was calling me to tell me that I had a grandson, and the fact that the love of my life, the one who seemed to have been hurt by my going back to be with my son, was there with me in the moment when this announcement came, as if it was perfectly set up for us to be together, as if we had always been together and in love. I don't know what to say. Like, I am out of words. I don't know how long I can talk tonight, because what's been going on in my life is so immense and so over the top. It's way beyond theories of awakening. It's way beyond theories of how we wake up. It's a personal testimony of healing individual understandings so that they no longer have the ability to cloud my mind. There were things that went on in my mind when I was sick that I was never, ever, ever able to tell anyone because they were so crazy. And yet, speaking with this friend of mine and hearing her talk about all the things that she's going through it showed me how diseased I was and how incredibly dumb it was for me to have believed those things. And yet, the joy of spending time with my friend, and the joy of my grandson being born, and the joy of recognizing that I had been healed miraculously of a disease that I didn't even know what it was. And now I was going to be able to help other friends who were going through this disease as well. It blew me away. The wisdom behind the process and the absolute necessity. I have no idea how or when I contracted this. No one knew I was sick. They just thought I was crazy and going through something. And then I was healed, and no one knew what I was healed of. Then down the road, when all my friends are struggling with this illness, the understanding of what occurred to me and the joy of being able to share it with them as the universe and my children share something with me, I don't know what to say. I'm like so blown away and in awe, not of like a theory of awakening, but the process, the individual process that I am being blessed with experiencing every day. The healing that my heart and mind feel, the relief of old ideas, dumb things, stuff that I never thought I would understand. Every jot and tittle, just as Jesus says, every jot and tittle is considered by the universe in the healing of our minds and hearts when we become willing to do what is asked of us in order to fulfill our function in the plan that God made with all of us in mind to help us understand that there is only love. And anything other than love is a misunderstanding, a misperception. And when we're ready to look at it in the light of the certainty that the Holy Spirit shares with us in our right mind, that there is only love, allows us to revisit each and every incident of our life that we thought was not that. Particular stuff. I'm not talking about theories. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about sitting here studying a theory of what the fuck Ramana Maharshi said awakening was. I'm talking about sitting with your brother in the discomfort of crazy stuff and being willing to say, hey, there's got to be more. How do we do this together? The spontaneous joy of miracles that undo crazy ideas and notions that have kept us from like holding our brother's hands as we go through this process. Because we've thought the process about something airy-fairy rather than the particular life we're living now. That's absolutely it. That's it, Christian. We're walking through time backwards. And when you are reversed, when you go through reversal of temporal order, you begin to understand which direction you're walking in. Although others cannot see that yet, And the reason why there's so much misunderstanding is because of the two directions one could be traveling in time, and the misinterpretations that come when you don't even understand which direction you're going in. It's incredible. We keep this at arm's length. This is what blows my mind. This is what drives me crazy. We keep the teachings at arm's length, as if there's something that's going to go on somewhere in the future, some transcendent experience that's going to show us everything we need to know, when the experiences we need are right here, right now, between us, and in the thoughts that we're thinking right here, right now. And then I listen to how we use these incredible documents and the incredible material that we're given from those who have awakened, to continue to use it the same way we use everything else, to make it into some practice that has nothing to do with what's going on, that at some moment is going to help us. It blows me away, because the help is here, right now. For every single particular thought you have held in your mind that has hurt you, you have thought your brother has held in their mind to hurt you, it's got nothing to do with attempting to reach reality in a transcendental experience, and everything to do at looking at where you are, right here, right now, with a willingness to see things differently, and include your brother in the joy that you experience when you are shown what's really going on for God's purpose and His plan, rather than what the ego would like to make all this crap into, to continue its existence and continue to show you that there are very, very bright ideas and incredible understandings that you could have about what awakening is, and still die because you refuse to forgive the past thoughts in your mind that are keeping you from resurrecting and living life eternal. You know, I am really not going to be able to speak much longer tonight. I am so wiped out and gutted from the release that I've been experiencing. And I'm so blown away at, I don't know how to say this. I can't explain to you how I feel so taken care of by God, by the universe. And it's like, I don't know, I suffered. It's like the suffering is a joy now. I can't talk. It's impossible for me to talk about this rationally, because nothing about it is rational. It's like all I know is I watched this happen, and I participate in it, and it happens to me, and I'm healed, and I experience love, and people are brought into my life, and there's joy, and there's joining, and there's everything that is promised in the book when I began to read it from A Course in Miracles. And one of the things I've absolutely come to be certain of, Jesus says in the Course, the world is not run by the laws of man. The world is governed by the laws of God. Now, the only way you can come to see that is when you release yourself from the egoic thinking that allows you to think that the way you are thinking is important to what's going on for you in the world and why you're here. When you free yourself from what the ego is trying to tell you, you join with the divine whole mind of the Holy Spirit, and then begin to see how everything is being guided to the outcome of the fulfillment of God's plan for atonement. So no one has to repeat this ever again. And it's not happening in the linear fashion that we anticipate time uses as the ego has attempted to convince us. It happens in a miraculous way, where miracles build on miracles, exponentially, not linearly, where miracles build on miracles, exponentially, to the point where we see that everything that's been occurring, when we see it in the right mind joined with the ego, has been always about one and one thing only: the joy of the fact that we were created whole and perfect as extension of God's love, and nothing, not even our most fevered nightmares, have had the ability to affect that. And in the wisdom and joy and certainty of the whole perfect mind of God creating, every single thing, every single misunderstanding, every single misperception is seen in a way that shows us it was only about joy and love, no matter how mistaken we were. It just blows me away. And this week has been major. This week has been major. I know, listen, oh my God, I don't know how to talk about this. I know that when people, begin to embark upon, spiritual studies and, reading things that are by awakened minds, I absolutely know that what they're attempting to do is to achieve a state that they imagine in their mind is available to them, because what's going on in their life now is no longer acceptable, and they want change. The only problem is that the change occurs right here, right now in your mind, where everything that you thought was in opposition to you is seen in a new way, and it is no longer that. The awakening, although we may have transcendent experiences, the awakening and the process that we've been given, the utilization of forgiveness, is designed to be used in everyday, mundane life to help show us that there is only the divine, there is only God creating, and it can be seen everywhere, in everything, because it's in our mind, and it is in fact what our mind is created to be. And in the fevered imaginings of an ego-oriented and identified thought system, it is everything and anything but that. So, I don't know what to say.